too. Good break. So thanks for coming on this journey with me. Topic 2. So let's talk about the positive stuff that we did over this break. Boy, howdy. Man, vacations are great, but vacations suck when they get to the end and you're like, oh shit, tomorrow is the last day. But at the beginning, they're really good and they go really slow. And how did I spend my time during the Christmas break, the New Year's break, during that slow time? I decided to watch some movies. I decided to catch up on my HBO Max watch list. Because why not? Because I create all these queues on these subscription services, and then do I watch those things? No. But I did on this vacation, excuse me. I decided to watch 3 DC films that were on my queue. I watched Black Adam, that just came out in theaters and now is on the streaming service, not an ad. I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League Director's Cut. And I watched the Injustice animated movie. Okie dokie. Strap in. So, let's start with Black Adam. Black Adam was a movie I kept saying, oh, I'm going to see in theaters. I'm going to see it. You know, I'm not the biggest DC fan. I enjoy The Rock's work. Figured I'll go see it. It's a superhero movie. I'll enjoy it. I'll get a kick out of it. Never ended up going seeing it. Just whether it was mental attitude or just being like, I don't want to go. Decided to watch it over the break. And to my surprise, pretty good. I had very low expectations going in this movie. Not that I was expecting it to be bad or anything. Just not really any excitement or anything like that. If you're out of the loop, the whole DC film franchise as of right now is kind of in this weird flux of redoing everything, restructuring, replanning, all this jazz. So the whole DC continuity of movies is essentially scrapped. They are still planning on releasing some films just because they're far in production, like Blue Beetle next year, Shazam 2. I think Aquaman 2 is still coming out, and then maybe Flash Time movie. I don't remember what they're calling it. But those are still coming out. But then on the headquarters side, they went through this merger with Discovery. So Warner Brothers Discovery are now together. And they have scrapped whatever they have built with the Snyderverse, or that at least continuity of stories. So your Superman, don't remember the name of that title. Man of Steel. Man of Steel, your Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman 1 and 2, Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam 1, I guess, was technically tied in, but whatever. Scrapping all of it. Scrapping that continuity, and we're starting fresh as we hired James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, along with other films, obviously. He's now head of DC along with another guy, and they're going to be reformatting, replanning everything similar to like an MCU where it's more conjoined, connective tissue, full plan, better organized, whatever you want to call it. So this film, obviously was produced before all these things happened and released just at the start of it. So it doesn't really matter, I guess, in terms of long term. Like, you're not going to get probably a Black Adam 2 where this is going to have connective tissue, whatever. So it's just a standalone, which is good. Those are great too, standalone films. You don't have to watch, like the Avengers, 21 movies in advance, and then you know how to play Endgame or whatever. So anyways, sorry, rant. Black Adam, decided to watch that. It was great. Interesting take they decided to take on the superhero. Now, I don't know much about Black Adam. My knowledge of Black Adam mainly comes from the Injustice video games and knowing he's an anti-hero, knowing he shares similar power sets from Shazam, still, activates his powers through the same word, the lightning powers, etc. I know he was kind of a bad guy and just emperor over Kahndaq, I believe is his country, and just was kind of mean and angry all the time. That's all I knew about him. the way they told the story here is they kind of made him the anti-hero, and I think it worked. You get this whole backstory, which in the trailers of the movie, they explain how he's a slave and his son, gets killed, and then he asks or wants to get revenge and is granted the power to get revenge for his son, for his family, which was murdered. Okay, great. That's how we go with the trailers, right? When they go into the film, his origin story changes like 3 times. And you're like, wait, hold on a minute. What do you mean his origin changed 3 times? In actuality, it doesn't, but it's everybody's understanding of the story. Excuse me. And then at the end, he actually tells everybody what's up. So you're presented at the beginning of the movie where it's this boy and his community is enslaved by these people looking for, I do not remember the material, but this material that can create this crown that has great power for the king. So the slaves are all doing that. He manages to find some, and the son essentially, tries to start a rebellion against this leading group. The son rallies his people and, puts up a symbol, some kind of triangle DDP thing, to, let his people know, united, rally, whatever. He's about to get executed. The son poofs away and is spared by the gods of something. Let's see if I can find it in the Wikipedia real quick. Council of Wizards. There we go. We're just going to call them that. Same wizards that we saw in the Shazam movie with Zachary Levi. So we got some continuity there. They give him the power of the Shazam so he can freeze people, all this jazz. Great. Kid gets superpowers. So we think, or we are told as the audience, that boy is Black Adam. Right? Okay. So we're told this. He frees the people, becomes the savior, and then he's put in this tombstone or put in this grave until he's called upon again. Later on, you learn that something else happens. He didn't actually save the city. The fight between him and the king blew up the city, and then he went away. But in actuality, the son became the superhero. Son does everything right and is champion of his people and is helping them out. He goes to his dad. His dad is dying? ? Something's wrong with his dad. He passes over the powers to his dad. Then he gets shot with an arrow in the back by the opposing faction, dies, and then his dad goes into rage mode with his new powers and then fights the king, blows up the city, blah, blah, blah. So you're like, oh, okay. Now that makes a little bit more sense because Black Adam, once again, from my knowledge, not supposed to be a good guy. So it makes sense he's doing this, obviously, for his own righteous reasons of his family. That's good. But did not maybe go about it the right way where it's just kill, 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 die, 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 etc., etc. So, interesting way they played out his origin story there. Sorry, we're going spoilers in case you didn't realize that. My bad. So, when he is awoken in the present day, he's kind of a dick. He's very ruthless. He just murders everybody who's threatening him or opposing him. He does look out for some researchers that do revive him and bring him back to life. And I will say those characters are great. It's a brother and sister group and then the son of the daughter, or sister, excuse me. So it's the 3 of them. And the brother's a hilarious, just comedy role. And then she's the serious one. And the son is kind of like the boy looking up to Black Adam. You're supposed to be this hero. You're supposed to be this symbol. And kind of idolizes superheroes. You can see it in his room. He's got all these comics and posters and whatever. But unfortunately, no superheroes really assist him and his people. So that's why he's putting all of his eggs in his basket for Black Adam and wants him to be the savior that the other heroes will not be for him and his people, because they are have been in this flux of like being under control from other colonizers, I think that's the correct term, and people not enslaving them, but like just ruling over them. So Adam gets revived, causes this chaos of at least, defending himself against these attackers. And this kind of triggers, for some reason, Amanda Waller, which is another connective tissue, who's not the ruler, but the leader of Suicide Squad. Now, if you know Suicide Squad, or the Suicide Squad, if you want to do the second one that was like a rehash or a redo, they're also criminals that are like just used for good. Like they plant a bomb in their neck or head, and they're out, like they're like special forces. They're put out on a task to help and do positive things, and then if the criminals don't work with them, they pull the trigger and blow them up. So it's like, all right, well, at least it was a bad guy that died, kind of thing. So anyways, somehow she gets contacted, and then she contacts or recruits the Justice Society, which is kind of like sidebar Justice League, where we get Hawkman, who is the leader, Dr. Fate, who is like your retiree call back into action, and then we get two young guns. We get Cyclone and we get Atom Smasher. I will say, these four were fantastic. Really cool to see these guys in the film. As someone who doesn't know a lot about DC lore, growing up with the cartoons and stuff like that, knew the characters, but only having, I guess, kind of an auxiliary or a little bit of a preliminary knowledge of these characters before, it's one of those experiences where it's cool to see it on the big screen, similar to a Justice League, regardless of what you think of that movie specifically. It was cool to experience that and see these characters brought to this kind of stage. I think Hawkman, just seeing him butt heads with Black Adam in their differing ideals and like how things are done and carried out, was great. Dr. Fate was amazing. I think it was Pierce Brosnan. Let me see if I'm right there. Yes, Pierce Brosnan was Dr. Fate. He was really cool. He's got a lot of very similarities to Doctor Strange on the Marvel side of things. So a lot of cool effects and just displays of his power there. And then the two recruits, kids, with Cyclone / Red Tornado. Oh, she's the granddaughter of Red Tornado. Okay, they said the name, and I was like, I thought that was a guy. But she was great. And then you had the goofy kind of side of it with the younger recruits with Atom Smasher, who was another like second generation or third generation hero. And just seeing like he's still kind of not learning to control it, but he's learning the on the field kind of stuff, like how to be cognizant of what he's doing, I guess. So I thought all the heroes, the five of them from Black Adam to the Justice Society, I thought they were all cool. The story itself, I thought played out very, very well, and was interesting and held my interest the entire time. I will say one small thing, and I guess this kind of will also tie into my Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. Super speed is an interesting power, right? It's cool to see how they have messed with it with films, whether it's from the Flash side of things over to the Marvel side of things with the X-Men films and Quicksilver, whatever. We've seen the good side of it and we've seen the bad side of it. How does it work? Because Wonder Woman can use super speed or is really fast, and then also Black Adam here can be really fast. But then there's other times where they're not really fast, and it's like, how did you get hit? Is it like a reactionary thing where they're getting the jump on people, and that's where like a quick reflex, how you can catch things really quick? Is that how you're able to move fast? But then these other times you're not, because either maybe you're tired or I don't know. I will say that was a little weird from time to time here, where Black Adam was either fast all the time or just wasn't. And I will say slow-mo, bro, they love their slow-mo in these movies. There's a lot of times where, and maybe it was more the Justice League side of things, where it was very stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. And I guess we'll just transfer over to the Justice League movie. So closing thoughts on Black Adam. Even though I didn't continue on the story, I just kind of did the origin story spoiler. So hey, there's that. Really enjoyed Black Adam. Thought the story was good. Not going to be groundbreaking, amazing. But it was a fun time. And especially being a standalone movie now with the whole continuity thing and the, good time. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. So let's talk about Justice League. Snyder Cut. Why the hell did I watch this? 4-hour movie. Yeah, I didn't misspeak. 4 hours. Snyder did not want a lot of that stuff cut from his film. Oh boy. So, theatrical release of Justice League came out 2015, 2016 maybe. I don't know. I guess I could look it up because I'm right here. And then the Snyder Cut came out in over the pandemic. So 2020-ish. So a lot of things were added back into this film over on HBO Max. 2017 was original Justice League. So a lot of things were added back in that Snyder wanted in there. And what did that include? So included more backstory for certain characters like your Cyborg, a little bit more for Flash. And then the big area, I guess you could say, that stuff was added was on the villain side of things. So in the original Justice League movie, you had Steppenwolf coming in. There's 3 mother boxes on Earth, and they want to recover those so they can essentially take over the planet and destroy it. So Steppenwolf shows up, causes chaos where these 3 mother boxes are held. One's held in Atlantis. One's held at the place where Wonder Woman's Amazonians are chilling on that island. And then the third one is with Cyborg, because that's how he is revived and gets his powers, if you want to call them powers. He's a robot. So in the original cut, he essentially deals with those 3 parties at their respective times. And then we have the epic conclusion at the end. Justice League reunites, or not reunites, unites, and we fight, right? In this one, we get a whole lot of exposition for Steppenwolf and actually make him a character. While in the original film, it was literally just, here comes big CG monster fights, gets box, goes cause chaos. This one, we understand what is his purpose for being here, which I appreciate. They tried to do this with Cyclops and Flash and give them a little bit more backstory of like, oh, what's their hardships? Why do we care about these heroes? And that, I will say, didn't really work, or didn't really seem relevant. Like, I can understand why it was cut. It helped a little bit, I would say, in Cyborg's case, of like knowing his angsty struggles and why he hates his dad and blah, blah, blah. But it just felt unnecessary. Hence why it was cut in the theatrical version. On the Steppenwolf side of things, you learn that he's trying to redeem himself. He's working for Doomsday, which you actually get to see in the Snyder Cut. And he's working for Doomsday to try and get these planets. And you see more of the fights between the 3 mother box fights. And when I say you get to see a lot, you see a lot. Maybe not in the Atlantis stuff, but boy howdy. When they go to the Wonder Woman area, Themyscira, that's the name of it. We spend a lot of time there in this whole big epic fight. And did it look cool? Sure. But talk about slow-mo. There was a lot of times we used slow-mo where we did not need to use slow-mo. And the action is very back and forth where normal speed. And then we're going to go very slow. And you're going to see every frame of this person diving out of the way, avoiding this bullet. And then we're going back to real speed. And then we're going to go back to this. I hope you held European because you're going to be here for a while. And then we're going to go back to it. Just like, there were so many moments of slow-mo. It's like, this is too much. You need to stop. So, how was the movie experience overall besides these things? It was okay. I enjoyed Justice League seeing it in 2017 for the thing of like I talked to with the Black Adam thing. We're seeing these characters in this different medium of, on the big screen. These characters come to life. And other than that, the movie was mid. Okay, wow, I just used that. Okay, Zoomer. The movie's okay. It's not great. It's not super, and I'm not trying to be Marvel fanboy like, oh, all those movies are great, because you've seen Phase 4 and you know my feelings on Phase 4. Oof. It was okay. And I think the director's cut was kind of on the same bar of it was just okay. And as mentioning it was 4 hours, it felt like 4 hours. And not in the respect of like I was dreading it because I was late night, I was bored, I was chilling. I, could care less. It just, I felt like I was sitting there longer than I was. And then when I finally checked it, it was like, I'm only an hour in? What? That was a problem. So is it worth the 4-hour experience? I'd probably say no, unless you're really into DC stuff. Then hey, here you go, enjoy. It was an interesting experience. I guess you could just wrap it up in a nice, neat bow there. Now, they are very nice, and they split it up into chapters. They don't really give you a forewarning of like in the streaming service of like this is where the cuts are if you wanted to, stop and then come back. But if you, I guess, mentally or physically wrote down, oh, okay, we're at part 3, which starts at this timestamp, then you could split it up that way. That might be a more enjoyable viewing experience. Who knows? That is a nice, they did break it up that way, at least in chapters like a book where, okay, there's going to be at least a start and finish to this section. Then we'll move on to the next one, Let's talk about the last chapter. Now, the last chapter is not, surprisingly, your conclusion of the movie, the big fight, the big epic, the good guys win. And you're like, wait a minute, what? No, that was the chapter previous. In the universe that they were building, in the theatrical releases, we got hints of this. So, I don't know if it was Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, or if it was Justice League. But in the theatrical release, we had seen Batman in this like dystopian future where Superman is kind of not a dictator, but he's very like opposite in mindset of what you would say Superman is, where he's very ruthless, aggressive, no nonsense. Well, not that, he's nonsense, and he's more tyrannical than a good guy kind of thing. And so it's Batman in this futuristic world, and it ends up being like this nightmare vision of like, oh, things are going to be bad, whatever. And we get this we get this point where Batman wakes up, sees a vision of the Flash from the future, and the Flash is like, it's about, oh crap, not Martha, because that was the whole gimmick and joke of Batman versus Superman. The moms were both named Martha. Yeah, you had to be there. It's all about Lois Lane. You gotta save Lois, blah, blah, blah. And Batman, being Batman during that time, was like, what? And then Flash was like, I didn't go in the right time. I'm too early. And then all the audience was like, what are you talking about? So this must have been Batman versus Superman. So they tried planting seeds for this bigger story, is what I'm trying to allude to. I know this sounds confusing. Guess what? It's the DC film franchise. It was confusing. So you get this vision of Batman versus Superman of the dark future, and then this warning from Flash. In Justice League, you realize, okay, Superman's dead. Sorry, spoiler there. He died in Batman vs. Superman. And in Justice League, they bring him back to life. Also weird. With the mother box. And Lois is the one that kind of brings him back to Earth. mentally, because when he wakes up, he's very not feeling himself. He doesn't know where he's at. He's scared. He's just fighting for his life. Blah. And Lois is the one that kind of ground him and make him realize, oh, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Whatever. So at the end of the director's cut, they decided, and by they I mean Zack Snyder, decided to continue this like dark alternate universe nightmare future. I'm not sure if they were eventually going to get to this and this was going to be continuity in the actual DCU. Oh, sorry, DCEU, because they were extended universe. If this was going to be canon and then we're going to eventually deal with this because Lois had died or something, like it would have been the repercussions from those actions, whatever. So you get more of this, and it's interesting. I will say it's interesting to see this like parallel universe or this like what if scenario, but also it's very confusing just in its placement of the film. Like it ends and it's all happy and yeah, we saved the day, and then it's this dark, gloomy short essentially, and then it's cliffhanger, and it's like, is this a tease? Is this actually a thing that I should care about? It's exactly that emoji. What? So the story they're trying to tell is it's this dark, path where Superman's tyrannical, but it's Batman with a new group or like ragtag group of heroes trying to take him down. So it's Batman, it's Cyborg, who's all different looking, it's the Flash, who has armor, and then you get Deathstroke, which we got teased at the theatrical cut of Justice League, and you get teased at in the end of this one, where he's going to be a bad guy, and they're going to set him up as the next bad guy, Batman villain, which was cool. Joe Magnolia, whatever his last name is, I apologize. He looked great as the character, and there's a whole Lex Luthor tie in there. The tease for that was cool, but then you have him in this, and then you get this big reveal of who the last member is. And boy, oh boy, do you guys like Morbius? Because it's Jared Leto as Joker from the original Suicide Squad from 2016. The one they retconned out and redid the other Suicide Squad with. Now, granted, I don't think Snyder was part of that at that time, but he was trying to tie that in. So Jared Leto goes on this whole speech, and he's trying to, irk up Batman and blah, blah, blah. It was just like, what? And I think that's where people are all getting the memes of like, we live in a society. I never recall him saying that, but maybe it's just because I was spaced out at the end of a 4-hour movie that I didn't catch it. Interesting. Now, regardless of what we think of Jared Leto's real life, I thought he did well as the Joker character. I know some people that's a very divided topic. I thought it was cool. So it was cool to see the character here, but it was one of those head-scratching moments of like, all right. But anyways, Joker and Batman getting this whole conversation of the working together now, but then eventually I'm just going to get you or be this pain in your ass. And then Superman like booms in and is like looming threat, and then we get cut to credits. It was interesting. Okay, I like our teases. Don't get me wrong. Marvel's always got their post-credit stuff. Let's see what we're building to the future. We had it with this film too, with Deathstroke and Luthor working together. I like it. This just seemed like too much, I guess. It would have been a lot more interesting. It's like, you reel out your fishing reel and you're trying to bait people and you luring them in, right? This lingered too much, and by the end of it, I was just like, I don't get it. It wasn't like, oh, I want to see that kind of thing. I think it would have been a more compelling or interesting thing. Granted, once again, at the time of them releasing Snyder Cut, Zack was a whole relationship with her. Whatever. It would have just been interesting to have this, like, turn reveal of the last member. It's Joker. He does the whole whatever laugh he does, and then we cut to black, and then we're all left there going, whoa, Joker's in here, blah, 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 whatever. I think that would have been more interesting than this whole 5-minute speech that the two had with each other. And then what was supposed to be, I guess, that cliffhanger moment of Superman booming in, whatever. Didn't really click. So, I don't know why I'm rambling on about it. Because once again, at the beginning of this topic, I said DC Universe or the Snyderverse, whatever, doesn't even matter now. So I'm just bitch to the open air and the open ears of all you lovely people. It doesn't matter. It means absolutely nothing. But yes, old man yells at cloud. It doesn't mean anything. It was an interesting... Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Yeah, I practice that all the time in the mirror, the Joker laugh. It just doesn't mean anything. So overall, would I recommend you watch Zack Snyder's Justice League? If you got 4 hours to kill, sure. Go for it. If you really like the DC stuff and you want to see more of these characters put into this medium, like Doomsday looked dope. Yes, sure. You'll get a kick out of it. You'll enjoy it. If you are like meh on these, no, don't watch it. Don't waste your 4 hours. You have a lot of other things you can do in that 4 hours. You can cut that time in half and watch the just original theatrical cut of Justice League if you really want to humor yourself and poke your head into this world. But Snyder Cut, yeah, that was interesting. And then for the last DC movie I decided to watch over this vacation, we'll talk about the Injustice movie. Now, this is an animated movie. Okay, buckle in. This is an animated movie based on the based on the comic, based on the video game. NetherRealm and Warner Brothers worked on Injustice, released Injustice 1 and 2 for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era. Yes. Amazing stories that they did with these two games here. Absolutely love them. I love what NetherRealm has done with those games, Mortal Kombat franchise, since I picked it up at 9, and we've gone forward from there. Can't recommend those stories highly enough to people. The comics kind of added to it. You got a little bit of more story beforehand. You got some story in between 1 and 2, and I think they've continued it past 2, but don't quote me on that. So all that stuff was essentially telling the same story, but with those additive things of what happened in Universe A compared to Universe B in the first Injustice, with the two timelines coming together, and then Injustice 2 being just following this one universe and seeing how that continued and building on that universe, whatever. So the animated movie, you would think, okay, they're just going to run it back in this different medium, try and get it to a new audience, and go from there. And I get that this is could be a whole separate topic of like, okay, do you, when you make a new medium for a story, do you follow the story point to point, or do you try and make it to your own, and then like this is an homage to the original thing? That's what they did in this animated film. They took the story of Injustice and took it and made it their own thing. And I'm not sure if it worked fully. It was another okay one. It wasn't great. So if you don't know the story of Injustice, spoilers, but this is like the beginning of the game, so I'll just say that. I won't say the whole game stuff. So the whole concept of Injustice is Joker threatens Metropolis. And in order to do this, he causes Superman... He kind of takes Superman out of the equation because obviously Superman is Superman and just can mess with Joker like nobody and just get rid of him immediately, right? And solve most problems. So he gets Superman out of the situation and attempts to destroy Metropolis. And what happens is the rest of the heroes try and stop this bomb at Metropolis, and at the very last second when everything's exploding, it somehow, because superheroes and comics, causes some of the heroes at the explosion and villains to transport to another universe where it's like a continuation of what would have happened if that bomb exploded. In the first Injustice game, you get a continuation of that moment, and the bomb does not go off, and the heroes that are still there are trying to figure out what's going on, and continuing where those heroes and villains transported to in the other universe where the bomb did happen and explode. Now, the thing is here, that's the tipping point, is because the bomb exploded, Lois Lane dies, and Superman goes apeshit and kills the Joker. That's the big, like, turning point cause for the story. So Superman turns evil. That's the whole shtick. So in the games, in the first game, you run these two storylines along these parallel universes and get that crossover, and then game 2 follows the Superman when evil universe and just sticks with that one. In the movie, you don't get this crossover of universes. You just follow the path of Superman turns evil. So we followed the same beginning plot points, but instead of Lois blowing up from the bomb, the way they get rid of Superman is Superman responds to an incident, and it's Scarecrow. And Scarecrow uses his gas on Superman, and Superman believes Doomsday, one of his big baddies, is attacking him. So Doomsday is very similar to Superman. I believe he's not from Krypton, but something. He's really strong. And Superman takes him out to space. He's punching the shit out of him, whatever, beating him up. During that time, Joker tries to blow up the bomb, succeeds, but just prior to that, Batman radios to him because Joker does the whole villain thing where he talks about, oh, this was my plan the whole time, yuck, yuck, yuck. And Batman's like, you've been gassed, Superman. You're not actually fighting whatever you're fighting. Superman snaps out of it, and instead of punching Doomsday all the way into space, he's been actually punching Lois, who's pregnant with his super baby, and he killed her. That causes him to freak out, kill Joker, and then we proceed from there. Oh boy. So, the movie, in some regards, follows at least his rise to power and some of the heroes and villains kind of siding with him, but then brings in other elements of new heroes that weren't even in the game, like I believe Plastic Man's in here, and then a bunch of other heroes that I don't really know. They were like B tier, C tier heroes. And they'll get in the altercation, and they'll eventually stop Superman from being this tyrannical guy who's pretty much policing the world of like, anything you do that is bad, we're going to stop you. And some people are happy about it. Some people aren't happy about it because it's very militaristic, or at least like Big Brother's watching kind of deal. And maybe it's just me from like comparing it to the games where I was like, it didn't click fully. I think it works. And it's fine as a film. It never felt like at any point bad. It just wasn't what I was expecting, I guess you could say. And once again, alluding back to my question earlier, is like, do you adapt things point to point, or do you try and make it your own thing? I'm kind of on both sides, because if you just adapt it point to point, like, there's nothing special about it, and everything's very predictable because you know exactly how it's going to go. But then you get something like this where it tries to be its own thing, and it's like, didn't really fully deliver in a great way. So, Injustice was fine. I don't know if it was really worth a watch. It was nice that they tried, I guess. If you haven't played through the Injustice games or seen that story all the way through, I think it's worth a watch, because it is this is an interesting story and power dynamic, because obviously Superman is so super powerful and not overpowered, but he's a tough thing to take down, especially from the other heroes' perspective and what their abilities are. So seeing them deal with that and kind of counteract it I think as a standalone story, if you didn't know the initial source material, I think it's good. But going from the games to that didn't really deliver. So interesting time. I would, that one's definitely a shorter one. I'd say that was maybe only an hour and a half. So a little bit easier thing to digest. So yeah, caught up on some of the DC movies on the watch list. Was it a good thing? Who's to say? Who knows? But